Hey guys, so I just wanted to do a quick tutorial on doing compositing, especially with actors. This is one of the shots from Space Command that we did, but you know, sometimes green screen compositing works really well and sometimes it doesn't. And this is a foolproof way of making it work. So you see I have a green screen shot here of Robert Picardo, who's an amazing actor, and here is a background that I created in a CG program called Maya. The first thing I want to do is get the green out of here, right? So if I go to key light and put key light on there, if all I do is that, you can see there's all kinds of muddy graininess and the edges are awful. And you know, it just depends on how the green screen was lit, how strong the lighting choices were. In this case, you know, this blue light's pretty strong, so unfortunately that hurts us a little bit when it comes to the green screen. And you see we have this really harsh edge right here as well. So this is one of those things I would consider to be a problematic shot. And so when we have one of those, we don't do this as a normal green screen matte. What we're going to do is actually create a Luma matte. So the first thing I'm going to do is pre-compose this layer. Doesn't matter what you name it. Let's go into that composition. And we have this guy here. We're going to put that key light on there again. And we'll go ahead and pull the green. And then I like to adjust the screen gain up to about 104 and screen balance to 56-ish. You can play with that a little bit. One of the ways to look at that is to look at the status. And when you look at the status, basically everything that's black is fully keyed out and everything that is white is what you're going to have as your final image, and all of the gray is the bad stuff. So if I started at 150, you can see how much I've already done by making slight changes to the balance and the screen gain. Now, the thing we're really going to work with here is the screen matte. Now in the screen matte, this is again kind of like the status. It's showing us what's keyed out. Now we have this clip black and clip white. Now when you clip the black, everything that was white that isn't supposed to be white goes away. And normally you don't want to go too far with this. You know, 20 or 30 from 0, and the same thing when you clip white. If you can go back, you know, this is actually, no, I still have some edge issues there. So you want to make sure that you have a nice crisp line. Okay, so now we have this nice matte here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the layer, and on the underneath, I'm going to leave it on screen matte mode right now. And on the underneath layer, I'm going to remove key light. And then I'm going to go to the track matte, and I'm going to track Luma matte. And so now what I'm doing is the above layer is being used as a Luma matte as opposed to a key. So any kind of detail issues you're having in here, any kind of noise you were seeing is now gone. Obviously there are still some problems here, right? But we're going to work on those. So the first thing we're going to do is go back into screen matte. We're going to soften the screen, and we're going to shrink the screen. So if I shrink that, 2.8 is quite a bit actually. Let me see if I can get away with a little bit less. Well, 2.4 is pretty good. Now obviously you can still see some green. You would see a lot more green if he didn't have a blue light on him, but you're going to see how we deal with that. I'm going to just adjust the softness a little bit more. And that looks pretty good. So now we're going to deal with the green, and that's very simple. We're going to go to Advanced Spill Suppressor. And as you can see, that pulls out the remaining green. Now, this is kind of a special case because he is very blue, and I don't want his final version to be very blue. So if I go to the regular spill suppressor, this allows me to remove blue, and I can just do it sort of 66%, and now he's starting to look a little bit more normal in his skin tones. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the comp. And so now you see all of that digital damage is gone. We don't need this key light on this layer anymore. Let's take a look at the full shot here. Okay, so now we just have a few things to deal with. Obviously, he's got some fringy stuff on his jacket. The contrast is off, so we're going to need a color balance here. So we're going to use Lumetri color. And let's go into basic correction. We can work with the contrast and the black level. And you can work with that and just adjust it to where it matches. Obviously, this is a tough one to match because of the blue color. I mean, we don't really have any blue lights in here. So one of the things that I can do is adjust the temperature a little bit more. Bring his temperature more toward orange. And I can put a color correction on the set and do the opposite and pull the set temperature more towards blue. And so now they're matching pretty good. Okay, so now let's look at this background, because obviously we need to make it somewhat out of focus, right? However, because of the depth, there's varying depths here. You don't want the whole thing to just be out of focus. So let's pre-compose this. And we'll go into that comp, and I'm going to add an adjustment layer. And we're going to get camera lens blur. And we're going to make this blur the sort of stronger blur that would be in the farther reaches, right? So let's say it's about 15. And then we're just going to draw a mask around basically that further back area. And then we're going to feather that mask so that it's somewhat subtle. That looks pretty good. So we'll go back to our comp and turn this guy back on. Now this is all in perfect focus, and it's actually a little bit higher quality than the footage that was shot. So we're also going to need to put a camera lens blur over the top of this layer. So I don't know if 5 is going to be too much. Maybe it's 3. Somewhere in there looks pretty good. Okay, so now you have a pretty decent comp. And if you want to make it even better, there's something from Red Giant called Super Comp. It's a plugin. Basically, it takes over the composition. And now everything you do is going to be in this box. The reason why you want to use this is because it has several functions that normally would take you hours to actually physically do. So like, for instance, edge blend. So edge blend is going to create something of a softened edge around the entire mat. Looks like we have some matte issues over here that we'll clean up as well. That's one nice thing about this. It also identifies the issues we have. So you can adjust this radius. You know, you can look at it on and off. So you can see it's just a subtle change, maybe a 2, which blends him into this set a little bit better. Obviously, because of where this light is, he should probably not be quite so close to us. So let's scale him down slightly. Now he's further away a little bit. Maybe we'll just move him over here so it's a little better, or even better. You can always flip him around and say, oh, that is his light. That is his key light right there. That works also. Now, before we go back and fix this little matte issue that we have, let's look at some of these other options. So one of them is light wrap. Now, I find this to be a really useful tool often. And what it does is any lights that are in the background will now, I'll turn it up so you can really see it, will now interact wherever they touch this layer. So if I move this layer over here to where this light is, you can see it's starting to get a bit of a soft, I'll turn it up so you can see how the light is there. If I turn down the size, that way it's not quite so crazy. But you can see, especially right in here, how that's how it would look, you know, in a real camera. So that's just a nice little additional thing. There are other things that we don't necessarily need in this scene, but that are very interesting. For instance, haze. You can put a haze over him if he needs to be fitting into something that already has some haze. You can also create volumetric fog. So if he's, you know, there's a light source behind him and, you know, fog shining through, works better with footage that makes sense. But there are some really cool functions with this. I really highly suggest having this. It doesn't solve every problem, but it makes certain things very fast. So that's one thing. Another thing I could do to this layer is this light right here could have a little bit of glow. And you can go to layer glow. Obviously this is affecting everything, but you can go to highlights only, put this at 100, and then it's only going to make those areas glow that are highlights. It's still a little strong, so we'll slow it down. Yeah, that's pretty good. So there you go. I mean, I don't know how long that took, but not very long. And, you know, you got a pretty decent comp. Though this light wrap is a little strong. Pull it back. Yep, I'll buy that for $1. So there you go, guys.